all, you're with me, Sharmila, on this channel, Learn to Excel. So today's topic of discussion is tips for good interview. I hope this topic helps you to prepare really well before you can go for any interview, and I hope it helps you grab the opportunity that you're looking forward for. So let's get started. So here are some of the tips which will help you to give one of the best interviews. So we'll go through each of these in detail in the forthcoming slide, but this is just the contents of what we will be covering in the next slide. First is research about the industry and company. Prepare for common interview questions. Practice. Make the most of the tell me about yourself question. Be ready for behavioral based interview questions and clarify selling points about yourself and the reason that you're looking forward for that particular job position. So these are the important tips that we'll be covering in today's session. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So let's look at these important tips which will help us in giving one of the best interviews, which will help us to grab the opportunity that we might be looking forward for. Okay, so first let's look at the first and foremost important tip. That's the research checklist. So when we say research about the industry or the company, it is one of the topmost tip that we can say that's important for giving one of the best interviews. So when you're going for an interview, the interviewer may ask questions like how you perceive the company's position, about the company or the firm's competitors, etc. So, research about the company. When we say research about the company, it could be the company's net worth, it could be about the company's location, the culture of the company, the mission, and the reputation of the company, and also about the company's competitors, who the competitors are for the particular company that you're going in for interview. It is good to know and helps you learn about the company that you might end up working for in case you get the opportunity. It also speaks about your interest in the company that you're applying for and might help you win brownie points too. So it is important that you research about the company and the job that you're applying for. So when we say you have to research about the job, you have to research about the qualifications required, the salary, the start date, the working hours, the role that you're applying for, current employees in that particular position. So research about the job as well, even before you could uh, apply for the job position or when you're going for the interview. So this is one of the important tip and which will help you in giving one of the best interviews. Second important tip is to prepare for common interview questions. Okay, so when we say prepare for common interview questions, so even if you look at Google or you go for a YouTube search, you might end up finding hundreds of common interview questions. It just depends on what position you're applying for and how many years of experience you carry. So there are the common interview questions will depend on your experience and the position that you're applying for, right? But there are certain questions which will still be very common ones, like tell me about yourself, what are your strengths and opportunities. So these are very common questions which can be asked for any position that you might be applying for or any job that you might be looking forward for. So when we say prepare for common interview questions, it means you have to prepare for these interview questions, and also depending on your experience and the position. So look for some common questions and then prepare your answers so you won't have to fumble for them during the actual interview process. So some of the common interview questions like we see here are tell me about yourself, what motivates you, what are your passions, what are your greatest weakness. So these are some of the common interview questions. Prepare really well on these and list down some examples from past experience as well, which can demonstrate these. Like for example, when we say what motivates you, you can list down things that motivates you, and from your past experience have one or two examples which will demonstrate that, right? So preparing for common interview questions is one other important tip which will help you to give you one of the best interviews. The third important tip is to practice, practice and practice. So as they say, practice makes everything perfect. Practicing before going for an interview will surely help you get the opportunity that you're looking forward for. So we can say that it's one thing to come prepared with a mental answer to a particular question. Like say for example, why should we hire you? That can be one challenge, but the actual challenge is about how you say it across in confidence and in a convincing way. So we can say maybe you can answer the question, but are you answering the question in a confident way and in a way that it is convincing for the interviewer? So maybe first time when you try it might not sound that confident or convincing, no matter how clear are you in your thought process. Okay, so practicing maybe 5 to 10 times will definitely help you answer the questions in a way which sounds a lot more smoother and in a way that it is convincing as well. So we can say that nobody practices for a stage show once they get onto the stage, right? So they rehearse well before they get onto the stage. Similarly, practice and rehearse well before going for an interview. So the practice can be like you can get along with two friends and do interviews for each other, or the other way could also be like you can tape record the answers and then play it back to see how you're answering. You can also do a video recording of you answer the questions and see what you could improve about that particular way of answering. Okay. And the most important thing about this particular tip is that when we say practice, 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 it is not just practicing the answers to the questions, but everything from the start to the end in an interview. Say, for example, greeting, shaking hands, smiling while you answering questions and asking questions, clarifying doubts, your body language, signing off. That is from the start to the end, from the time you shake hands to the time you exit the interview, you have to practice. So this practice will help you in terms of giving a good impression to the interviewer, which will definitely win brownie points for you. So some of the things which you definitely need to practice is one is smiling. You must always smile and make an eye contact. It need not be a fake smile, but smiling genuinely. Shaking hands, right? So that's one other important thing in an interview. Answering the questions, interviewing questions, your body language, how you uh, um, answer the questions, how you behave when, even when you're saying that you're sitting, what is the sitting position when you're answering a question, right? And maybe the way you exit the interview, thanking them for the time that they've given, and shaking hands with them before you leave the interview room. So, from the start to the end, you have to practice, and this will definitely help you in giving a good interview. The next important thing is about this particular question. This is a very common question, and let me tell you, this is a question that will be asked in any interview, let it be any position or experience that you might be carrying. This is a very common question that will be asked. So Usually interviews begin interviews with this particular question. So here's a quick tip on how you could prepare for it, right? So you can start the discussion with your current situation. You can speak about your current role, the key highlights of the current role, what are your achievements and responsibilities, what are the rewards and recognitions that you would have received, right? And the next thing is about speaking about your background in your professional journey. You can summarize your previous experience. What are the roles, different roles that you have performed, and what great results you achieved in the previous roles. Third important tip is that you can speak about your interests, your qualifications, right, and what makes you successful. This is where you can speak about your strengths, your motivations, the rewards and recognitions that you would have received, right? So, so when you use work on this particular question about tell me about yourself, make the most of it. To give one simple example, you can say, I could tell you about a lot of things, right? But most important thing that I would want you to know about me is that I am good at engagement skills. I have experience, managerial experience for 5 years. I'm good at project management, right? So just an example, right? So you could make the most of it. This particular interview question. So prepare really well when about this particular question. Tell me about yourself. The next important tip is preparing on behavioral questions. So, one of the most common interview styles today is to ask people to describe experience in which they can demonstrate the skills that is required for the particular position that they are looking for. So you might be asked to talk about a time, maybe when you had made a very good decision, displayed a high level of persistence, or made a decision under pressure with limited information, right? So it can be anything. So these are just examples. See, here's some tips how you can give best in answering the behavioral questions. Always use specific and relevant examples that demonstrate that particular behavior that they are looking forward for. Say, for example, if you say that your strength is communication, you can pick example from your past experience which speaks about good communication skills. You can say that you were a trainer and you were able to ramp up people at a very short time period, and your communication skills is something which helped you in achieving that. That's just an example, right? So prepare specific and relevant examples, and use recent behavioral examples, like in the recent past, like 1 to 2 years. Do not look beyond that because it become too old to speak about. um, Speak about a specific or the star, follow the star steps, which is nothing but the situation, the task that you took up, what are the actions that you did, and what were the results about that particular actions that you took, right? So always follow this methodology to answer any behavioral questions. That way you are able to cover all of it. Stick to the facts. That is one other important thing. Do not make up or cook stories, but give facts, which will definitely help you give the right answers to the behavioral interviewing questions. Last but not the least, this is one other tip: selling points. So before you go for any interview, prepare really well, at least 3 to 5 selling points. Ensure that you have uh, some examples which demonstrates those selling points as well. Right. So, like the example that I gave, if you say that your strength is a good communication skills, then you can speak about some example which is relevant to that communication skill. Or say, for example, you have very good project management skill. If you say you are good at project management, you can bring some example related to projects where you use that strength of yours to bring in to that particular project, right? So that's how you can work on your selling points. So selling points is one important thing, and you definitely need to be prepared on the selling points that you would want to speak in the interview. Okay, so even if the interviewer doesn't think you're really interested in the job, and um, they are not looking for giving you this opportunity, they'll definitely consider the selling points that you're speaking about, right? If not for this particular job, they will definitely consider you for any other opportunity that might come in their organization. Okay, so these are some of the tips that will definitely help you in giving a good interview. Let's quickly recap. One is research about the company and the job position that you're applying for. Second thing is prepare for common interview questions. Third thing is practice, practice, and practice. Fourth important thing is preparing on this common question, which is about tell me about yourself. Then fifth is preparing on behavioral based interview questions. Last but not the least, to have your selling points. Okay, so that is all I had for today's session. If you have any questions or comments, please leave your feedback in the comment section. Thanks so much.